And that always just annoyed the crap out of me. I don't care if it goes from like little basketball with floppity ears into a dinosaur, into a refrigerator, into a tank, into a dragon. That doesn't bother me. I just want it to always do that. Don't randomly become something else because you ate too much food, Agumon. The other thing about it that a lot of people forget about the whole Digimon thing is that it has a massive threshold of entry. Okay? Pokemon's like, you're a dog fighting? It's that. And that's the end of Pokemon. You know, they add their mythology later on. It's not a thing you need to know to get into it. You just understand that there's dog fighting, and kids go, I like that. And that's how it goes. Digimon's like, okay, there's another reality that was made by some programmers that somehow gained sentience and got wildly out of control and became somewhat manifest in a pocket dimension that sort of bubbled onto the side of ours. Inside of there's these little monsters who are sometimes monsters and are sometimes just dudes. And
then someone goes, okay, yeah, that's great. Explain to me how my giant purple cat turns into a 50-foot dragon.
That's what I was going to say. So follow me here. Bunny turns into Big Bunny with chain gun, turns into a literal tank. You see where I'm going here with this.
It's like, why is it that cat digivolves into a woman with tits? Make that make sense.
It literally feels like most Digimon designs were just like, you got anything for me, Jacob? Yeah.
It's like, did I miss a couple of steps here?
Cat with boobs, do that. Yeah. Bunny with a gun.
I guarantee you the character development team from Digimon were hired on the Team Sonic. I guarantee you.
They have to be.
They were absolutely 100%. See that political correctness, Mon?
Political correctness, Mon?
Yeah. The situation that we have with Digimon is that it's never, unless they finally peel it back down to something very simple, it's never going to catch on. At least not in the West.
That's a good thing.
Not like super giant, huge. Yeah.
Maybe that's a good thing, though, because do you really, considering the current state of fandom, do you really want it to go mainstream?
Oh, honestly, do you really want Sora to become a thing? Like, let's be honest. Does anyone actually like Sora? Exactly.
I like Biyomon better. Biyomon was way more fun than Sora. But yeah,
Sora is the Angela Anaconda of the Digimon franchise.
Pretty close. And you know what? Matt deserves her. But friendship and love, they can go hand in hand all the way to Hanky Town. But the situation that you have with, I keep saying that phrase, I'm sorry. What you're doing with Digimon
in our head sometimes.
Yeah, getting circular here. Digimon needs to lower the threshold. You know, regardless of making it mainstream, we're to the point now where the lore doesn't make any sense. We've got people that are like back rooms falling into the digital world. You've got people that are like having these experiences where they purposely open gates to enter the digital world at will.
I mean, in all honesty, like the adventures timeline is so screwed up at this point. You couldn't. There's no way to possibly make sense of everything that's happened just within that time frame. And then you got to somehow explain like Savers on top of that. It's like you're not even going to be able to understand how the first two seasons of Digimon work. It's like season 2 literally ended with the whole thing going, 25 years later, here's everyone with all these kids and whatnot. Yeah. Now they've gone so far into the adventurous timeline. They're only 5 years away from that time period where everyone's supposed to be married and have kids. So like, how do you loop that back into the whole thing and keep everything canon?
And they don't want to.
Like, this Digimon made us repeat time for 20 years.
Right, and that's just so personally for me, what would be very easy to do, because Tamers made a very entry level concept to Digimon.
Yeah.
And so I really think that would be the best route to reboot the series around, is that Digimon is real. And the fact that people believe that it's real makes it real. It's a circular, fulfilling, paradoxical prophecy. Digimon existing makes Digimon exist and inspired Digimon to keep it existing. Very simple. Okay.
You know what's sad though? It's like Tamers set a bar that was so ridiculously high that even 20 years later, people are like, "Don't touch it," because
True.
you can't do anything to add to what was done 20 years ago. Like there's no new series, there's no expansion. It's like it was a perfect story, a perfect ending. There's really nothing more you could possibly do with Tamers at this point.
And you know what? It's funny you mentioned that because while they've never done anything with the like story of Tamers and stuff, in the years since, they've given what's his name, Magnamon, like 7 different new forms that are all the same form but like bigger armor. And I'm just like, it was perfect already. Like that gold armor was just, it was like that's all you needed. And so you can see that
I'm old enough to remember like when he first came out, he was technically a champion, and then they realized he's gonna be like if he's gonna be a royal knight, it'd be weird if he's a champion, so let's make him a mega. So they retconned him to be a mega, and then there's been several changes to him over the course of a few years as well. So it's like there's a few Pokemon that unless you were like there in the height of it, like 99 to 2000, they very rapidly like retcon things, their entire lore quite literally during that time frame too, to where it's like 25 years later, people are like, oh no, he was always like that. Like, no, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
I mean, Jacob, we talked about it. There's Rio that we have like no lore about him like prior to him.
So that's actually a good point, because Rio makes a Venture timeline make even less sense than it already does. I think I took this with Cider not too long ago, but Rio is by definition canon in the Adventurer timeline, which makes no sense because in the Tamers timeline, Adventure is nothing more than a TV show. Yet he's listed. So if you go to the actual backstory of Rio and Ken, they even made it like an appearance in one of the earlier episodes of season 2. Like Rio was technically canon to Ken's life, even though they didn't make him an on-screen character during that series. He's also featured in a cameo in the Digimon movie as well, so he's canon to the Adventurer timeline. Somehow, at the end of whatever the video game arc was, where he decides he's going to leave that universe, go to the Tamers universe, the Tamer universe says that the Adventurers universe is nothing more than a television show and the source of a popular video game, but he's canon in both. So it's like, how does that make any sense whatsoever?
Hey, it's happened before where it's like, it's not a lie. The TV show is actually a real thing, and it's just like a psyop or something.
So he reversed isekai'd himself. Huh.
Oh, yeah.
Well, hey, that would be a fun story, right? You tell the perspective of the Digimon.
Rio isekai'd himself, like he traveled through the Adventures digital world and isekai'd himself into the Tamers digital world.
So you tell the story from like Gilmon's perspective, but it's a little different in that it's an existing Digimon. You don't have to create a brand new Digimon for this. You have like an Agumon. And he's fallen into the real world, and all he knows is he needs to find his tamer. And so you follow him going around and meeting people in Tokyo. And you, as usual in anime, the adults are way too comfortable with a talking small creature wandering around. They're like, "Oh, are you lost?" And he's just trying to find his tamer. And that would be a good way to reboot the series, is to tell it from the Digimon's perspective for once, rather than the humans.
You know what? Here's a series that actually kind of disproves your argument on a perfect series that doesn't need like a sequel or anything. Zatch Bell actually kind of disproves your theory, because Zatch Bell 2 came out like 20 years after the series ended. The first Zatch Bell was perfect, had a fantastic ending and everything. Zatch Bell 2 comes out, and my God, Zatch Bell 2 is incredible. This Spencer knows because he reads it, so he knows how good it is. The way Makoto has written the story, it's not like a complete retreading of things. There's a fantastic villain. You have like, I'm spoiling part of it yet, so you have to deal with it. The demon world has been destroyed essentially, and the majority of the demons are dead, quote unquote, and now you have to bring the users back together and destroy the threat. That's what's happening here. You could have something similar to that in Tamers. You could do something similar, where the digital world is basically being destroyed, and you have to where Gilmon comes out.
Well, here's your problem, Nerdigans. It's like, in order to bring two universes together to even create a canon where they can both exist, you have to at least get one of them actually right in the first place, right?
No,
and the problem with Adventurers,
Tamers. I'm not saying Adventure. I'm just saying specifically for Tamers.
Yeah.
If you were going to do a sequel for Tamers, it's you because you were saying because it's been 20 years. It's 20 years later that can't happen. Zatch Bell actually said, and it had a perfect ending. Zatch Bell disproves your theory. There's a way to do it's if it's written correctly, you could do it.
Oh yeah.
You just have to have a big enough threat, and you have to have it just not retread the same thing. I
said, from the Tamer's perspective, it's a lot easier to kind of make sense of it. Like I said, it was basically a one shot. Like I said, if you're trying to interlink that with Adventurers, with all the other canon that already, like, first of all, remember, this whole thing apparently started because one night a Greymon and a Parrotmon fell out of the sky and started fighting like Godzilla and Kong style, and then they went up into the sky. Any kid who saw that became a Digidestin, except for that wasn't true, because we just did a 02 movie that's proved that some other kid was actually the first Digidestin, not to mention all the World Tour kids that we don't talk about anymore. They existed as well. And then that gets into the first series of Digimon, where Kari somehow became the light bearer, but then later on you figure out that homeostasis was controlled in being the whole time, even though he was created. So it's like, when you get to this point, then you eventually start looking like Charlie Day in this picture here, where you're trying to make sense of just like absolute nonsense.
Yeah,
It
no,
really,
like, this would be
it's
like
that.
yeah, you know, if there is a Tamer sequel, it would probably be and I'm just thinking it like how it's if it's like Zatch Bell 2, because of how Rio left and everything, you would have like the digital world being practically destroyed, and you'd have Rio come out of the digital world and try to find everyone and bring everyone back together.
Yeah. Or I will say this too, you know, with all the talk about, you know, Tamers and Adventurers, you know, like I said, Savers is out there. Savers was pretty solid one shot too. I mean, it wasn't obviously up to the level that Tamers was, but then again, what is? But for a one shot series, they actually did pretty damn well. And I would, you know, if you want to look into digging something up and try to make something out of that, you can always do that too.
I just hope that whatever they make for a new property, that's the next Mon thing, you know, where like child with dog fighting creature. I just hope that they simplify it, not for the sake of the kids, just for the sake of longevity. Because even Pokemon falls into this now, where there's just too many gods, there's too many hierarchies of power.
The mega forms, and then
there's too many Digimon that make, you know, teenagers sexually uncomfortable.
Too many Pokemon.
Yeah,
you've seen some Pokemon recently who had some suggestive.
We do know that it's clearly the Pokemon is the one that really gets their goats, if you will.
Yeah.
Lucario is a particular favorite.
That is so weird, man. That was that. You ever have like you guys went to college? I didn't. So you have like a roommate in college, and you find out something about him like after you graduate, and you're like, "Whoa, I spent time around that guy."
I didn't even have to wait to graduate. My first roommate was like literally the most socially weird, inept person possible. Like, he would wake up at like 5 a.m. because he had class at 6, and he would start practicing rock band drums in the middle of our dorm, and it was like 3 of us, and we're like, what the we are me and the other guy were like, dude, we just went out drinking, like, you need to stop, like, what is wrong with you? And then
we're gonna play the drums with you, meaning with your body parts.
And at like one point,
that sounds like something. Now hold on a second, because there could be another side to this. You guys could have just been a bunch of drunk assholes who ruined his entire night. So as payback, he decided that he was gonna get up early in the morning and get one over on you.
Unfair. That's not out of the question to say, but from my perspective, since I'm here and he's not, that sucked.
Yeah. I would have just gotten a giant wooden spoon and like a pan and just been like going to town.
Clang, 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 clang. Man, where are you gonna find a pan in a college dorm room? Let's be 100% real.
So
Digimon Savers, 'cause I'm not sure how many people actually watch Savers. It was a series that came out in 2007, and after Frontier flopped hard, they came out with a series called Savers, or I believe in the United States it was called Data Squad. So you might also find it on Data Squad. It was essentially, it was three individuals who were, it was set more for like older teens. So they figured that, you know, maybe the original Digimon fans were like a little bit older at that time period. So let's set something that's not focused more to kids as it is more young adults. So it's kind of like the more young adult series of Digimon. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so I believe that the whole thing was that they were police officers, that they were assisting the police officers, and it kind of like led into the introduction of the Royal Knights, which is the first official time that Digimon has addressed the Royal Knights team in any kind of anime up to that point. You also had concepts of like the Demon Lords as well. Marcus, I think, is the lead kid here. He was known for basically punching other Digimon in the face. I forget the girl's name here on the right, but she was famous for having, you know, the little flower Pokemon there who turns into Rosemon, who, if you want to talk about censorship, Rosemon got 100% nerfed from the Japanese version to the American version. Quite a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah, that character is Sexual Awakening, the anime character. That is from every, there's even her ass cheeks jiggle.
That's like, it makes no sense because you're trying to explain to people that, you know, this this plant looking Digimon here basically turns into Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah,
and at some point in time,
like that's what when Cider was like Sexual Awakening, I'm like, I can only imagine like how many kids were sitting there like, yeah, I love Sunflower Mom. Oh, or I love Lily Mom. Oh,
Palmon is my favorite.
No, I don't like Palmon anymore, actually.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
Right. Well, see, this, it's the old joke about girls going through puberty. You know, you got like Palmon, where she's like just kind of like floppy hair, langly limbs all over the place, and kind of loud and goofy, trying to keep up with the boys. And then puberty hits, and she turns into Rosemon. No one's like, "Hey, how are you? How's it going?
Oh, we're
gonna follow you around now."
You know? He's like, you know what? Maybe I'll take on a couple of episodes of this little show here. Maybe you guys are onto something here. Yeah, so this was the original Japanese version that got completely nerfed in America.
Superior, because the children. Think of the children.
It's always, this would be considered porn by certain people.
Oh, yeah. Well, it definitely got in front of 4Kids censors.
Yeah,
woo!
Look at that.
Right there. Right in your face.
They did. Yep.
Yeah, this would be this.
It's like,
certain people would say,
did that plant just turn into a stripper?
you know, some dad was like, you should stop watching that Digimon, and then he saw that, he's like, never mind, I was not familiar with your game.
Yeah, exactly.
The craziest thing about Digimon for me always was the evolution cycle, but not for your guys' reasons where it was random. It was the fact that they would turn into the same thing. Like with Pokemon, I understood it because every Pikachu was a Pikachu, you know. But a Gatomon and a black Gatomon would still be able to turn into Lady Devimon.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Regardless of their paths, you know, if they just, whatever happens, they were angry when they hit their champion evolution, their ultimate evolution, they would become Devimon as opposed to Agumon. And it was like, it doesn't make any sense. That should just go straight up. Is it like Black Gatomon should become Lady Devimon? Well, no, Pokemon does go straight up. Pokemon,
no, not Eevee.
Well, that's just it. Eevee has a modifier, right? But that's a permanent evolution.
Sort of like a gimmicky almost type of thing. Like that's its thing, is that it can change into all those, and then like Cider said, nothing else can turn into them. Like its own, like you can't get a Glaceon from a Goldeen, but you can get it only from Eevee.
Right. Whereas we have like Lopmon going through an evolution and turning into a Megadramon. You know, which is the Mega Dragon there, the pink dragon that Gatomon Mega evolves into. And that always just annoyed the crap out of me. I don't care if it goes from like little basketball with floppy ears into a dinosaur, into a refrigerator, into a tank, into a dragon. That doesn't bother me. I just want it to always do that. Don't randomly become something else because you ate too much food, Agumon.
Like, I totally get that sentiment, because I remember as a kid, you know, you learn that the Digimons evolve and then they get weird and you go, oh, okay, you were like an orange dragon before, but now you're like a giant sea monster. Okay, but you learned like that's just what it does. And so there was a point where I was like, that's weird, but I can accept that. Like I can still follow that this becomes that, this becomes that. And then I learned, like I played some game and it showed that, oh yeah, you did unevolve them and then you can evolve them into that form. And I was just like, oh, so there was just no rules to this. It is literally just like roll a dice and see what happens.
It's a really rich universe, but every storyteller just hits themselves over the head with a ball peen hammer before they decide to write it. And that's just what happens. They just, for whatever reason, corporate just has this Bible for Digimon that they insist on burning between every season. And I don't understand.
It probably looks less like the Bible, more like the Quran at this point.
Really, the fan fiction archive of our own .net kind of version, where it's just everybody and their brother got a chapter to write to themselves. The thing that bothered me about the Digimon Data Squad was when it came to America, they wanted to make it a kids show. They didn't try to CW it. And it just killed it because the characters were doing the teenage machismo while like kid voice and kid attitude were coming out of them. And it just completely.
Like I said, it was very clear from watching the Japanese one. It wasn't a kid. Like the target audience was very clearly like teenagers, like that 13 to like 19 teenage demographic. That's what they were going for with this series.
So what I'm getting is that we should just make our own Digimon. Like Japan's going to go work with China now, so screw them.
Could it be any worse than Ghost Game?
See? Right? All we have to do is avoid being stupid. And that
Ghost Game was 66 episodes of literal filler. Filler.
Boruto is like nothing but filler too.
Ghost Game is the series. Ghost Game is the series that when you get to like episode 40, you'd be like, man, really nothing has happened in this whole series yet. Is that like a point to any of this? It's like, are we building anything?
Well, I remember you and I were watching it in Nerdigans, and then like when we got to like the last 4 episodes, I remember you and I jumped on a stream and I was like, hey Jacob, guess what? Plot. And you were like, I can't believe it. We're finally getting a story. And it's about to end.
Yeah, and then like the last episode was like, oh yeah, I was warning you about a great battle that is to come. It's like, when is it gonna happen? In 2,000 years. It was like, what the fuck are you telling us for?
Question mark. Yeah, we are far too early.
It's like literally none of us are gonna be alive by the time this takes place. It's like, well, this is the whole point of this episode. Like, what are we doing? So literally, if you have not seen Ghost Game, this is basically the layout here. They decided that, hey, look, we got a lot of Digimon here. Let's kind of play up to the horror elements of Digimon because no series has done that. And you know what?
No, Jacob, slow down. What? You said horror too fast again, and we just got done talking about Digimon strippers. All right, we slow it down a little.
Horror, not horror. But no, so they were thinking, okay, let's do a horror genre of Digimon, which, look, there's plenty of Digimon that works if you actually, put a proper story together. And you can do elements with like Palmon and Myotismon and things of that nature that actually work out very well. Even like I said, 7 demon lords, they're already ready there to go. So it had potential as an idea, and it started off pretty decently introducing some of the characters. They did the typical like 10-15 episode introduction to everyone, which they do normally for series like this. But then as the show goes on and on and on, so here's basically every episode from like 2 down to 65, right? Some evil Digimon is somewhere out there terrorizing people or like putting curses on people and whatnot. They investigate, they find out what it is. There's a short battle, and then halfway during the battle, they realize it's some sort of misunderstanding, and then the episode ends, and it just goes on to next episode. This happens throughout the entire run. By the time you get to about episode 40, you're like, man, there hasn't actually been like a plot that I can put together here in any of these episodes. It's like that there's one character that kind of like arrives and then comes back again. He won't see him again for like another 15-20 episodes. Then he shows up again, then he goes away, and it's kind of like, Are we doing anything with this guy? It's like, so by the time you get to like episode 60 and you know there's only a handful of episodes left, you realize nothing has actually happened, to the point that if they were even going to try to string this along somehow, like to be like, oh, this was the plan the whole time, it's not going to make any sense because nothing has happened. And that's exactly what happened. The last 2 episodes, the character, the villain of the series finally pops back up, and it's not even like a shock that they were the villain the entire time, because it's like you could have figured it out pretty early on that was the bad guy.
Obvious. Yeah.
And then even then, they only actually like beat him, like defeat him. He goes away. He's just kind of like there towards the end. He's like, he's defeated, but he's just like, okay, we'll let you go with a warning, I guess. You know.
And then he kind of just he gives up from like being beaten. Like imagine if you went out and you played a football game and you lost, and then you were like, I'm never playing again.
No, imagine here's something for you Dragon Ball Z fans. Imagine like Majin Buu and Evil Buu split, and then after that happened, all the Z fighters told Evil Buu that you get.
Get on out of here.
Exactly. and then that's the end of the series. It just ended right there.